Welcome to Frisco, the Secret History Podcast. I'm your host, Knox Bronson. I have a wonderful story for you today. We are going back in time to share the story of one of San Francisco's most infamous madams, Dolly Adams, who arrived in San Francisco from New York in 1877 while still in her teens. She immediately splashed, both literally and figuratively, into the Frisco zeitgeist with her act as the Water Queen. Able to hold her breath for an astonishing amount of time, she swam in a fish tank at a North Beach nightclub, wearing semi-transparent tights, much to the fevered delight of the city's bloods, as they were called, rich young men of the idle class. Before we get going, I want to say thank you to Walter Haas at Grafeo Coffee Roasters at 735 Columbus Avenue in San Francisco. Grafeo was founded in 1935 and has been selling coffee beans to the public and the best restaurants near and far ever since. I have been drinking Grafeo coffee since I lived around the corner on Mason Street back in the 70s. Grafeo offers a dark roast, a light roast, and a Swiss water decaf bean. If you can't get to North Beach, you can go to grafeo.com. That is graffeo.com and order there. They sell whole beans or will grind to your request. I love starting my day with a huge mug of dark roast. And I am really happy to say that Grafeo Coffee is a founding sponsor for the Frisco, the Secret History Podcast. I am thrilled to be associated with such an historic and iconic San Francisco brand. Grafeo beans are, as it says on the package, simply the finest coffee in the world. It's true. Give Grafeo a try. You will thank me. I have found joy beyond expectation in researching and writing these episodes of Frisco Past. For most of my life, I was always looking forward. I knew the future would be better. I was a fanatic reader of science fiction in my teens and 20s. As I once said to Peter Mitten, San Francisco's society pianist who played at the exclusive L'Etoile nightclub atop Nob Hill for decades, Peter, I finally figured out the difference between you and me. You would like to live in the 30s, and I would like to live 1,000,000 years in the future. I have known Peter since the early 60s when we walked together to Willard Junior High School in Berkeley every morning. My father was a best-selling author and historian. Among other books, he wrote The Earth Shook, the Sky Burned, about the 1906 earthquake and fire, which was a national bestseller and is still considered by some to be the definitive book on the topic. Needless to say, I grew up imbued with San Francisco and Northern California history. So, yes, I am at last following in Dad's footsteps, and I have come to understand his fascination with the past, especially about this impossible city, San Francisco, the outlaw village on the far edge of the American continent by the shining blue Pacific, built on gold and vice industry and commerce by merchants and madams, desperados and adventurers from around the world. Why am I sharing all this? Well, it's my convoluted way of introducing the first part of this episode about Dolly Adams. I had originally planned it to be a shorter bonus-type episode, for Dolly's time in Frisco was short and tragic. In 1895, William Chambliss self-published a book, Chambliss Diary, or Society as It Really Is, by William H. Chambliss. Fully illustrated with over 50 copper plate halftones and photo engravings, including 25 society pictures by Laura E. Foster in New York City. Dolly is mentioned in the book, as are a number of prominent San Francisco families and individuals. As is often the case in researching episodes, a name or an event, as in this case, a book is mentioned, and I am sent down a historical rabbit hole wherein I might get lost for hours. The recent 3-episode story on the Nick DeJohn murder of 1947, the investigation and trial, came to be due to a passing cryptic reference to DeJohn in a Freddie Francisco column in late 1948. Kurt Gentry, in his book, The Madams of San Francisco, talks about Chambliss and his book at length in his chapter about Dolly Adams. Naturally, I went down the William Chambliss rabbit hole and found, among other things, a PDF of his 1895 book online. He could not get it published in San Francisco. Its production was actively sabotaged here, in fact, so he self-published it in New York City. What a book it is. The man was an insufferable, hateful snob from Mississippi who felt compelled to expound on the failings, moral and otherwise, of San Francisco society. He did not last long here. I'm sure he was laughed out of town, although he definitely had a few friends in San Francisco. In his preface, he wrote, "The foolish attempt of certain members of the parvenu element of San Francisco and New York to suppress the book before it was half written by accusing me of being too personal in my remarks and writing in a spirit of revenge only goes to prove that the guilty sometimes call attention to their errors by denying things of which no one has accused them. In order to show the difference between real respectability and vulgar pretension in high or alleged high life, I have indulged in a few personal remarks and have given some examples that will corroborate the openly expressed opinions of many honorable citizens who declare that the alleged or the self-styled high society is just a reverse of what it claims to be. I have written this for the good of society and not to a view with injuring anyone. No person has a higher regard for the real respectability than I have, and my detestation for shoddyism, snobbery, and insolence, the 3 principal strands in the mainstay of the alleged high society, ranks second to that of none." That's quite a sentence, isn't it? The San Francisco Examiner, in commenting upon the absurdity of trying to suppress the truth, made the following remarks in a leading editorial: that there should be a considerable dissension from the publication of Mr. Chambliss' diary, wherein he has unfolded his secrets concerning the personnel of society, is natural. That the dissenters should be persons of prominence in that sacred circle, no less so. Whether the author has or has not portrayed society as it really is would seem to be a matter of minor importance in determining the cause of dissension. Of greater weight is the fact that he has portrayed it as it has pleased him to do. From Mr. Chambliss' taste and pleasure, neither social distinction nor obscure origin nor financial worth is adequate protection. even great military prowess is insufficient to silence him. With the term parvenu, Chambliss was referring to the newly wealthy of San Francisco. He coined the term parvenucracy and wrote, "Parvenucracy means those arch-parvenus and their followers who imagine that the mere acquisition of a few $1,000s, coupled with an unlimited supply of insolence and arrogance, is all that they require in order to gain admission to the homes of persons of culture and refinement." See what I mean? Here are some other pre-publication quotes from his preface. From Miss Jessie Robertson's San Francisco Society. Chambliss' Diary will be the most successful book ever issued on society. There is a profound conviction all around that the author is a man who has had the opportunity of studying the human nature he is portraying on paper. He has traveled extensively all over the world, always moving in the best circles of society. He comes from one of the oldest families in Mississippi. Slaveholders, of that I'm certain. From Jared Hoag's California and Her Builders. The author is well known as a typical representative of honored heredity. His life and career have given him favorable opportunities to see society life as it really is, and the diary is a truthful narrative of the customs and usages of the best society, and a scathing review of shoddyism, vulgarity, and truckling sycophancy abundant in the so-called Society of Parvenus. In Chapter 1, Chambliss writes, "At first, immigration was a good thing for the country. Many good people, sick and tired of the oppression of monarchs and aristocrats, came over and proved to be valuable citizens. But too much of a good thing of this kind is worse than not enough. Out of this foreign immigration there sprang up an evil which has grown to such alarming proportions that, at the present time, our very form of government is threatened with disruption. Glad of an opportunity to get rid of their paupers, France, Germany, Italy, Portugal, Great Britain, Russia, Spain, Norway, and Sweden threw open the floodgates of their sewers and shipped us thousands and hundreds of thousands of the very lowest and most undesirable elements of civilization, those unfortunate creatures who never enjoyed in their own countries the privileges that stray felines and canines are allowed over here, are the very devils in human form who defy law and order and threaten the destruction of the government that fosters them." Sound familiar? He was a rich kid from the Deep South. How does this all relate to the rather sad story of Dolly Adams? I'm going to share one last excerpt of Chambliss's book. There's a lot to unpack in it, so please bear with me. We sailed from Yokohama on the 8th of January. One of our cabin passengers died the following morning. She was not a society lady by any means, but nevertheless, she had a great many friends among the society swells of San Francisco. Perhaps a mention of her name will remind certain prominent members of the Bohemian, the Olympic, and the Pacific Union clubs of many a pleasant little midnight coaching party from a certain Ellis Street establishment to the Cliff House. For among her baggage were photographs of several prominent members of the above-mentioned clubs. How she got those photographs, I will ask the reader to decide. The woman's name was Dolly Adams, better known as the Water Queen, and the establishment she received her distinguished friends in was similar to the notorious Stockton Street establishment kept by Maud Nelson, who is now Mrs. Charles Fair. I make no apology to the reader for using the name of such a character as Maud Nelson, because she has married into a set that ranks among the most presumptuous and arrogant parvenus of America. When she married Charlie Fair and took him off to Europe on a bridal tour on the income from the Stockton Street house, she became the daughter-in-law of ex-Senator James G. Fair and the sister-in-law of Mr. and Mrs. Herman Ulrichs, of Newspaper Society fame. The reading public knows very well how the names of Mr. and Mrs. Herman Ulrichs and the rest of the Fair crowd have been boldly flaunted in the papers to let people know that they had been lunched or dined with some of the other members of the same set that they belonged to. And I suppose we will soon learn that Mr. and Mrs. Charlie Fair are being entertained by the members of the same vulgar set. Are they not birds of a feather? And are they not eligible to membership of the Friday Night Cotillion Club, provided that they can raise the necessary $5 to hand over to Mr. Greenway for the admission to the dance hall? If Mr. and Mrs. C.P. Huntington, Mr. and Mrs. J.L. Flood, Mr. and Mrs. C.E. Paxton, Mr. and Mrs. M.H. DeYoung, Mrs. V. Spalding, Mr. and Mrs. Wise, and others of that stripe are eligible, I see no reason why poor, much-abused Charlie and Maud should be excluded. I merely speak of this because I believe in fair play. If the escapade of young Charlie Fair is not a repetition of history, I should like to know what you would have me call it. When such creatures as those can pose before the public in society columns of the papers as representatives of California polite society, it is time for reputable citizens to keep out of print, except to protest against such journalism and such journalists as would permit such foul names to appear in a society report and on basis of equality with pure, innocent girls. We did not bury Dolly Adams at sea. Dr. Frank Sutton embalmed the body and placed it in a Chinese wooden coffin and brought it into San Francisco, where it was turned over to some charitable institution for burial. On our way home from Yokohama, we called at Honolulu on the 19th of January to land several hundred Chinese contract laborers that we had in steerage for the Spreckels sugar plantation in the Hawaiian Islands. Owing to the fact that the smallpox was raging at Hong Kong, from which port we brought those Chinese laborers, the authorities in Honolulu refused to allow us to land either passengers or freight at that port. Consequently, we had to bring the whole load up to San Francisco. Upon our arrival here on the 27th, we were immediately placed in quarantine by Dr. McAllister. This gentleman is no relation to the late society leader Ward, who ordered us to anchor over at the Angel Island quarantine station. Chambliss had sailed from Yokohama in January of 1888. On board the ship was Dolly Adams, former madam, who died on the second day of the voyage. He identified her by name as well as her stage moniker, the Water Queen. Said she had many friends among the members of the best San Francisco clubs. He claimed to have found photographs of a number of society swells in her luggage, and implied she knew them from her bordello. How he gained access to her luggage is unknown, and it is possible he made the story up. I would not be surprised. He did not identify which men were in the photos by name, although he later mentions such names as Flood, Huntington, DeYoung, and so on, prominent names in our history any San Franciscan will recognize. He also felt compelled to mention Maud Nelson, another Frisco madam, and how Maud had married Charlie Fair, scion of silver mining king and U.S. Senator James G. Fair. I will tell Maud Nelson Fair's story soon enough. His contempt for Frisco is clear throughout. I've spent a little time perusing the rest of the book, which came in at 400-plus pages of unrelenting and poisonous privilege. He loathed the city and our freewheeling ways. Kurt Gentry says of the book, it remains an exceedingly strange volume, more than half devoted to slavish self-praise, the rest to scandal. Gentry also wrote, the above paragraph, referring to Dolly Adams, alias the Water Queen, was written by a man as full of hate and venom as the editors of the San Francisco's early scandal sheets. The book in which it appeared became, within days after its 1895 publication, one of the rare volumes Californiana, not because it was not issued in quantity. It was, some 10,000 copies being printed in New York, but because once it reached the Pacific Coast, a number of prominent San Franciscans spent considerable amounts of time and money buying and burning every copy they could obtain. One San Francisco matron, credited with an abnormally large purchase and possessing an understanding of psychotherapy far in advance of her day, is said to have saved her copies and consigned them singly to the flames whenever a particularly bad mood came upon her. Some members of San Francisco society were touchy about their backgrounds and origins. They were unappreciative of historian Bancroft's declaration that an aristocracy, in the common acceptance of the term, never found a place in California. I've discussed this before in my first episode. I quoted what attorney Jake the Master Ehrlich wrote about on the first day of his arrival in the city in the early 1920s. I strode on up Market Street, ignoring the protests from my empty belly. I admired the people about me. The men seemed more robust, more male, more capable of absolutely anything, good, bad, than any I'd seen. And I liked the curious, uninhibited feeling of democracy that seemed to exist between them. Teamsters and draymen addressed sulphurous warnings and bodies wit to their so-called social betters, and even to the police, as well as to their peers in the traffic interchanges that enlivened life on Market Street. I am certain that the city's bold and forthright egalitarianism drove the effete, powder-puff Chambliss insane. If he ever crossed paths with Emperor Norton on the streets of Frisco, I would bet that the emperor would barely have acknowledged his existence. Chambliss finally scurried home and lived out his days in Mississippi. I'm happy to report that the man does not merit a notice in the Wikipedia. Not all of the copies of his book were burned, mainly because not all of the books were shipped to California. There are copies of it available even today. I found one for $99 on eBay. I am not tempted to buy it. All right, out of the rabbit hole and back to Dolly Adams. Dolly Adams was born in New York City. Her father died when she was quite young, leaving her and her mother in what her obituary called straitened circumstances. Dolly was a willful and wayward girl, and very independent. She made acquaintances of which her mother knew nothing, and this led to her downfall. She had barely turned 14, as her San Francisco Chronicle obituary put it, when her ruin was accomplished. The obituary continued. She afterward fell into the hands of a disreputable woman in her native city, and, under her guidance, entered upon a life of shame and became an inmate of her gilded palace of vice. It was at this house that Mary Ellis met her, and she induced her, in company with Carrie McClay and others, who have since become well known, to come to this city being San Francisco. Dolly first made her splash here, not as a prostitute or madam, but by swimming in a tank on stage at the Bella Union Theater. She was known as the Water Girl. In his book, Lights and Shades in San Francisco, Benjamin E. Lloyd wrote, a year before Dolly arrived in the city in 1877, the Bella Union was a lively remnant of Gold Rush days, a prototype for all the city's melodeons. It was also to survive most of them. Because of its former bad reputation, many respectable persons still persist in shunning it. While it is true that among its patrons there are many rough and vicious characters from whom habit continued to frequent it, it is also a fact that a good order is always preserved, and there is no indecent conduct permitted either upon the stage or in the audience. When she became a prominent figure in North Beach, the admiration of the men and the envy of the women, she earned the sobriquet of the Water Queen, but it was not until 1878 that she became famous and struck the keynote to her fortune. In that year, Colonel Andrews gave a masquerade ball under the auspices of a charitable institution, and Dolly appeared in the character of Cupid. Needless to say, she carried away the first prize, and also carried away the heads of those who saw her. Hers was a petite figure, but most perfectly proportioned. She had a laughing eye and pearly teeth, and magnificent hair of brownish color which fell to her knees. She made many friends among the Bloods, as the moneyed sons of Nob Hill and Pacific Heights were called, and dollars, diamonds, and other delights were showered upon her. There are conflicting dates, respectively, between Kurt Gentry's account of Dolly's life and that of her obituary. Gentry writes, "There have been many who, like Dolly Adams, entered the world of the demimonde by way of the theater, but not with the same splash. Dolly Adams first appeared on the stage at the Bella Union in about 1873, billed as the Water Queen. Of her parentage and background, little is known. Her age at the time was 11, but endowed far beyond her years. She easily passed for 17. So Gentry has her arriving in San Francisco at age 11 in 1873. Her 1888 obituary has her arriving in 1877 at age 14. Another publication reported, Dolly became famous in 1879 when she attended the annual fundraiser for the Policemen's Widows and Orphans Fund, known as the Policeman's Ball, because former President Ulysses S. Grant had stopped in San Francisco and had agreed to attend the fete, which was held at the Mechanics Pavilion at 8th and Market Streets. He was marching at the head of the solemn processional, ahead of the guests of honor, when suddenly, out of the gay throng, dashed a somewhat famous, if slightly frail beauty of the period, Dolly Adams. She was attired in the conventional costume of Cupid, as well as the bow and arrow, which formed the two-thirds of the attire. She carried a lily corsage, an emblem of purity. Before the general could recover from the first shock of her greeting, she had pinned the delicate blossom to the lapel of his coat. It was said that the indomitable Grant, who had never flinched through the horror of 100 pitched battles, wilted like a wet dishcloth before this unexpected onslaught. The girl, for she was still a girl, knew how to make an impression. Gentry writes elsewhere. The next chapter of Dolly's story comes from the recollections of a local theater historian, as told to him by his father many years ago. One of the city's madams, impressed with Dolly's beauty, her reputation as the water queen, and with definite ulterior motives in mind, is said to have taken the vivacious brunette teenager under her wing, gradually introducing her to the brighter side of demimonde life by arranging for her intimate trysts with wealthy customers in the plush upstairs rooms of the better French restaurants. I would imagine the poodle dog was one of them. Remember the poodle dog from the Nick DeJohn story? At this time, indecent exhibitions were presented with regularity in several of the parlor houses, as well as in various Barbary Coast dives. A part of Dolly's fame derived from her ability to remain underwater for amazingly long periods without servicing for breath. The madam was not unimaginative. However, when Dolly finally succumbed to financial blandishments, the erotic expedition was found to be more sensational in concept than practical in design. No male partner capable of successfully performing his role underwater could be found. Dates and recollections grow misty at this point, but it is known that for a time Dolly became a femme entretenue, or kept woman. In the late 1870s, she became a madam, opening a lodging house on Ellis Street. From the publication of the first San Francisco Directory of 1850 until the issue of 1916, when lodging houses and hotels were combined under a single heading, many of the city's parlor houses advertised themselves under the former designation. The address, 225 Ellis, was about to become one of the best known in the annals of San Francisco prostitution. Dolly, however, had picked up several bad habits while still very young: drink, laudanum, and opium. She had another habit that no business-wise madam indulges in openly. She made herself available to the most wealthy of her male clientele, a situation which will forever keep a house from becoming a happy home, jealousies among the girls being complicated enough without the mistress of the establishment monopolizing the best customers. Dolly was to pay for this particular sin. On top of her addictions, Dolly had contracted syphilis, for which there was no known cure at the time. Her business boomed, and for a good 5 years of riotous living in the 1880s, she was a wealthy woman. She supported her mother and sisters back in New York City. Her addictions and her illness took a severe toll on her appearance, and as one newspaper reported, she had at last been deserted by her former patrons, lovers, and admirers. She returned to New York City in 1887 for 5 months. During this time, she was swindled out of $4,500, about $160,000 today, which she was later to recover. She would return to San Francisco shortly thereafter and set sail for a tour of the Orient. In 1887, a bizarre tale unfolded in New York City. Dolly was mentioned in the story, and the San Francisco Chronicle carried it on the front page. A matrimonial agency was chasing an actor, one Gus Williams, for a debt of $100, or about $3,500 today. The matrimonial exchange claimed that Gus had met 30 women at their offices and was put in correspondence with 14 more. He had put down a $5 deposit with the promise to pay $100 upon marrying one of their referrals. They claimed that Gus had stiffed them on his introduction fee to the exceptionally attractive Emma Middlebrook, whom he had later married. Gus was, at the time, performing in St. Louis, but said through his lawyer that he'd never heard of the agency and threatened to sue. The article stated that Emma had once been a particular friend of Dolly Adams, the Water Queen. Emma and Dolly had once lived in a house with one Mrs. Uller in New York City. Mrs. Uller, no first name for Mrs. Uller survives in the record, was a woman with her own scandal and tragedy in the past. Before living with Dolly, she had been enticed away from her husband by a man named Haverstick in the Big Apple. Upon receiving this news, her brother traveled from Nevada to New York and killed Haverstick. He stood trial for the murder and was acquitted. A year later, while living with Dolly and Emma, she committed suicide. Later, Emma married Gus. Dolly returned to Frisco. Whatever kind of house it was, it attracted strange company. Dolly returned to San Francisco at the end of 1887 as a wreck of her former self, though reportedly still in possession of magnificent diamonds and considerable railroad bonds. She stayed in the city for about 3 weeks and then sailed for a tour of the Orient. In Hong Kong, she received word of her mother's death in New York City. She promptly booked passage for San Francisco on a steamship. Reports vary, but she died of acute bronchitis or pneumonia within the first few days of the voyage. Her body was embalmed aboard the ship. The obituary in the San Francisco Chronicle on February 11, 1888, read, "Burial of Dolly Adams, the noted swimmer laid to rest in this city. The embalmed remains of Dolly Adams were taken yesterday from the steamer City of New York, on which she died during passage here from China, and buried in this city. The public administrator called upon the purser of the vessel for her effects, which were contained in a little tin trunk that opened at the custom house yesterday. It contained less valuables than was expected. The following articles were found: 15 $5 gold pieces, 1 English sovereign, $10 in Hong Kong money, 1 bond of $1,000 of the Metropolitan Elevated Railway Company of New York, 1 diamond crescent, and 5 diamond bracelets, besides a gold watch, chatelaine, and several fans." The obituary in the Examiner quoted the ship's doctor, the one who had embalmed her, as remarking, "She was horribly ravaged by disease. She appeared to be a woman well in her 70s. Tiny Dolly Adams, Frisco's infamous water queen, was only 26 years old. Frisco, The Secret History, is a listener-supported podcast. Main episodes will always be free. Our website is www.friscothesecrethistory.com. Visit the website for transcripts and show notes. Paid tier members, starting at as little as $5 a month, will receive bonus episodes and other perks of membership. There's a $1 tier, but that will simply give you ad-free episodes when I get some advertisers. If you enjoy the podcast, please tell your friends about it. especially those who enjoy San Francisco or true crime history. Word of mouth is the absolute best means of promotion for any creative endeavor in this world of algorithms and the ceaseless barrage of ads, notifications, and appeals on every digital platform. If you are aware of some particular aspect of San Francisco history in the 30s and 40s you would like me to research or have a story to tell, please let me know. Once again, I'm your host, Knox Bronson. Thank you for listening. Until next time, please get a little crazy and call it Frisco.